Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. Here's what we have in the bulletin. At least 6 categories of U.S. visas are set to be affected by new application fee. Opposition blasts government following independent Fiscal Commission report. And later in sports, Cavalier kicked out of Caribbean Cup with defeat. Thank you for joining us. I'm Kerry Simpson. Here are the details. We begin with more details on the U.S. visa surcharge that took effect yesterday. U.S. Immigration Attorney Winston Tucker explained that at least 6 categories of visas will be affected by the new application fee. Jamaicans applying for visa, student or work visas to the United States will now pay an additional $250, bringing the total cost to $435 per person.
It will be affecting the B1, B2, the student visas F and M category, and the work visa H1B, along with the exchange visiting visas, which is the J visa.
He explained that unlike the B1, B2 visitor visa that lasts up to 10 years, the J1 visa, which is largely utilized by university students, is valid for only 1 year. He said the new application fee would apply each time a student applies for a visa. It's still uncertain how the new surcharge will be refunded. However, Mr. Tucker made this suggestion.
However, say that if you're on a J1 and you returned at the end of that period, then it would close out that visa process, because at that, when you're ready to return, then you would have to apply for another visa. So at the end of your stay here and return back home, you should be receiving that $250.
Opposition spokesman on finance Julian Robinson says the country cannot afford the repeated failure of the government to spend its capital budget, especially when stronger economic growth is urgently needed to boost the revenues and improve the country's fiscal position. He was responding to a release from the Independent Fiscal Commission, IFC, highlighting a troubling pattern of under-execution with similar shortfalls in the previous 2 fiscal years.
20 of the $40 billion that was projected for the capital budget for the first quarter of this fiscal year. This represents a worrying trend where there is chronic underinvestment of our capital budget. For the last fiscal year, for 24-25, the government underspent the capital budget by $19 billion. For the previous fiscal year, for 23-24, it underspent the capital budget by $9 billion.
Mr. Robinson says Jamaica is projected to grow by just 1% annually over the next 4 years, blaming delays on the public procurement system. He's urging the government to fix these issues and speed up capital spending to support long-term economic growth. The National Water Commission has led a tour of the water facilities in Southeast St. Mary amid speculation that water from the parish was being diverted to Portland. Additionally, the NWC explained that the reason for the increased disruptions of the commodity in the constituency. More from Krista Campbell.
It's been raining heavily over the past 2 weeks across the island, but in St. Mary, the National Water Commission says the drought has only worsened. On a tour of the Southeast St. Mary constituency on Wednesday, NWC Regional Manager Richard Williams explained that's the reason for the change in water supply schedule in recent weeks. He also addressed concerns that water was being diverted from St. Mary to the neighboring parish of Portland.
There are 2 separate facilities. The water supply that goes to Portland is separate from the Anata Bay. When the Anata Bay goes down, it would be as a result of either us doing some maintenance repairs or there is a possible power outage. So there are 2 separate facilities. There is a drought now which affects the Portland side more than the Anata Bay side, because we ensure that the Anata Bay continues to run as per schedule. One of the main reasons for that, you have the school and the hospital is a priority, so we ensure that water continues to serve those areas.
Member of Parliament for Southeast St. Mary, Christopher Brown, explained that the tour was necessary to get a better understanding of the long-standing water issues in the parish.
Although the majority of the constituency is already on a scheduled process. It has also intensified the need to further schedule the schedule arrangements. And so there's a lot of difficulty. What I've asked Mr. Williams and my team is here with me is for us to understand what can be done in the short term and in the immediate term for the residents when those issues, whether it is something goes with GPS, which impacts the water supply, there's a leakage on some of the sources, which is impacting the water supply, or for any other reason as it relates to the water levels.
He says he will now be seeking dialogue with the water and prime ministers on working out a long-term solution to St. Mary's water woes.
Because the truth is, the capacity and the structure that is here was developed for a set number of communities. Over the years, significant other communities and residents have been added on, while the capacity has not been expanded.
Krista Campbell, TVJ News.
Education Minister Dr. Dana Morris Dixon has given an update on the case of the missing Manchester High student. 12-year-old Jaden Smith, the first former, has been missing since Friday. Staff, students and parents from the school have joined efforts to search for him. The minister noted that the authorities remain actively involved in the investigation.
They've been scouring CCTV cameras around the area trying to locate him. They've not been successful, but they're not stopping. But it's important. He was seen at particular areas.
She is also urging Jamaicans to play their part in keeping also children safe, especially in public spaces.
As our children, every child is ours. And this notion that we had in the past that every child was ours and that raising children was a community affair, we have to get back to that.
Meanwhile, the education minister says the school nutrition policy is now being implemented across the island.
Particular areas, they're out at commercial spaces, hanging out at the time of school. But those establishments allow them to come in when they should be at school. It's a responsibility that all of us have. We have to understand that our children need us to really care for them. It's not just their parents. It's the entire community that has to do it.
President of the Jamaica Association of Principals of Secondary Schools, Linvern Wright, has welcomed the new anti-bullying campaign. The Ministry of Education is teaming up with UNICEF to address the issue. Speaking Thursday on the morning agenda on Power 106, Mr. Wright highlighted real concerns raised by students, including some requesting transfers due to bullying.
It's an important thing too that we get the student leaders involved in this to understand that when you see, because as principals we don't see everything. It's reporting that we can respond to in many instances. When you see it as a principal in many instances, it maybe has gone a little bad, or somebody's really doing it, not realizing that you're around.
When asked to define what bullying entails, Principal of St. George's College, Margaret Campbell, said the issue goes beyond physical aggression.
Of course, I mentioned earlier cyberbullying. So there's the online sharing, picking on the others, saying unkind things online. And that has such great power because it spreads so quickly. And so it has such a tremendous impact on the person being bullied. And then for boys' schools, I know people laugh about this all the time, it is a name calling, the labeling kind of thing. And I'll tell you an interesting, really quick story. We had called a parent recently to tell him that his son is calling another student names and the other student is receiving it very, very badly. He doesn't want to go to class. And the parent laughed and said, and before we demonize the parent, this is many of us, right? The parent laughed and said, oh, but it's a boys' school, he needs to man up.
The ministry says more details about the anti-bullying campaign will be made public in the coming weeks. It is time for a break, but stay with us. More stories when we return. Welcome back to the Midday News. It is now time for the Business Minute.
The Statistical Institute of Jamaica is reporting that the number of persons outside of the labor force fell to 665,000 in July of this year from 694,000 in July of last year. Statin, however, says the number of youth not working or going to school climbed to just under 125,000 in July of this year from 123,200 in July of last year. Meanwhile, it is also reporting that 59,400 of the youth not going to school or working were males, while 65,300 were females. The youth unemployment rate was at 10.2%. Further afield, it is now day 2 of the U.S. government shutdown, and the budget impasse is starting to have an impact. The FBI Agents Association says a shutdown can undermine the FBI's ability to perform its duties at a time when the country faces an unprecedented range of national security and criminal threats. The White House says it will soon use the shutdown as a reason to lay off federal workers. Sources say it also thinks a food program for women, infants, and children could run out of money by next week. A recent survey shows about a quarter of military families rely on WIC. Service members are among the federal workers no longer getting paid. And that's it for the Business Minute. I'm Prince Moore.
Time now for the top regional and international stories.
In the region, the Trinidad and Tobago police say they have seized over 300 million Trinidadian dollars in illegal drugs during a 2-day operation in Palo Seco. Acting on intelligence, officers discovered over 1,000 kilograms of Colombian creepy marijuana packed in 41 crocus bags and over 100 kilograms of cocaine packed in 5 crocus bags. Authorities believe the stash was about to be moved to avoid detection. The bust follows the arrest of a key associate of the drug trafficking network earlier this week. On the international scene, 2 people are dead and at least 3 others injured after an attack outside a British synagogue in England. Police say a suspect rammed his car toward a group of people in a suburb north of Manchester in northern England. Another man was also stabbed. Police say the suspected assailant was shot by armed officers. His condition remains unknown at this time. According to PA Media News Agency, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer says more police will be sent to synagogues countrywide. And those are the top regional and international stories. I'm Shane Masters.
Thank you, Shane. We now head to a quick break. When we come back, we'll have your Midday Sports Report.